Hello, everybody. How you doing? So we're going to be starting our June 20th IDA meeting, and we're going to do a roll call. We have Gregory Nato. Here. Christina Amato. Here. Adam Pollack.
Here.
We have Jania. And Teresa. You can press the button. But we got it. All right, so moving on to item number 2, we have sent out proof of notice for the meeting. And we then, item number 3, we are going to be approving the minutes from the previous, we're going to be taking we're going to be looking to approve the minutes for the previous meeting for May 16th.
Motion? I make a motion
Yeah.
to approve the minutes. Sorry. I will make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting of May 16th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so moving on to item number 4, the report of the treasurer.
Thanks. Okay, for as of May the 1st, 2022, the operating account began with a balance of $302,696. There were deposits made during this time period of $12,803.27. To go over disbursements in the amounts of $1,377.88 for a final balance as of May the 31st, $314,121.39. The newly created payroll account has been established, and there is activity from May 2022. A beginning balance of $72,000 was moved into that account. The payroll net for that month was $2,999.77. Taxes in the amount of $1,294.87 were taken for a final closing balance on May the 31st of $67,705.36. The applications fund began and ended the month of May with the same balance, $14,137.50. The lesser tenant account had the same activity as the applications fund. Beginning and ending balance for the month of May was $2,400. And finally, our money market account, as of May the 1st, 2022, the opening balance was $750,893.98. There were interest credits in the amount of $92.58. For a closing balance as of May the 31st of $750,986.56.
All right, so we need a motion to approve the treasurer's report and a motion to pay the bills.
So moved.
And do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, so for the chairman's report.
I know you wanted to wrap it up in one to be efficient, but they have to be separate.
Okay, so let's have a motion. That was a motion for the treasurer's report. So let's have a second motion for the payment of the bills.
I make a motion to pay the bills.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so now on to the chairman's report. I would like to start by noting Juneteenth. I should have actually started the meeting with this. I realize this is kind of a new role for me, but, better late than never. So Juneteenth, an annual commemoration of the end of slavery in the United States after the Civil War, has been celebrated by African Americans since the late 1800s. President Biden signed the legislation last year that made Juneteenth, which falls on June 19th, a federal holiday. So the city remained open today And I'd like to note that we actually opened it so that if anybody felt that we needed to reschedule, it was up for reschedule. We didn't have a request. We're holding our meeting as regularly scheduled today. Whether the city in the future makes it a day off, we won't know. But, as of now, we're just going to move as regularly scheduled. All right. I don't have a whole lot. I do want to note a few things that popped into my radar, and a conference that Cher and I attended, which was the 12th annual Placemaking Conference and Adaptive Reuse, making places out of old spaces. So I just want to share a little bit of my takeaway. We had a gentleman by the name of Chris Heitman. He's an urban planner and community developer. He's got a lengthier description of what he really does on his LinkedIn. I would highly recommend if you are interested in finding out a little bit more about it. But anyways, he noted a few things that I took away, which was the importance of sidewalks, right? Which for me reinforces Newburgh's need to improve the quality of the sidewalks, but most importantly, to find other uses that adds benefits to the business and the residents. Sometimes it's just empty space. And he also talked about another principle. So these are principles. So the thinking of sidewalks a little bit different, right? This is one of his principles. He's a urban planner and community developer. So he also spoke about the importance of turning a building inside out, which is bringing the business from the inside and putting it outside. This is space that's for pretty much almost all the businesses that I can think of that are brick and mortar is not being utilized properly or to its max capacity, right? And then he also talked about, another principle is he talked about creating community hubs, all right? And he gave an example of adding other activities to what a farmer's market would be, something additional, all right? So for me, he speaks about vibrancy, economic and social opportunities in a community like ours. I took away that we need to start looking at traditional spaces and places differently, not only in the inside but outside when we deal with development. We should bring these topics up with government bodies and developers. And maybe we can make an impact for something like this. I know that we have seen places naturally evolve and create spaces like this, right? Hubs. And as just a patron or somebody that just enjoys going to certain places, I benefited from it without really thinking that we could actually be more intentional about these type of things. And especially in a city like Newburgh, where we could have population density. We have a good number of buildings that are currently being adopted and reused as we speak, and we're part of these type of developments ourselves, right? And in our own mission statement, we talk about adaptive reuse. So it's something that I think we should keep in the back of our mind whenever we're talking to developers, and hopefully we maximize the benefits to these projects and bring more benefits to the city. So just wanted to note that. Another thing that popped up in my radar was the Kiernan's Group development. I know that housing shortage is a thing, right? We all know that. And, well, it's just noteworthy for me that there was a development of 75 affordable apartments, energy efficient development in Poughkeepsie. And this is part of the governor's doing a program. She's not doing a program, but she has an agenda where she's doubling down on this on housing and development. Why that came across my radar is because I would like to see affordable housing, which that is not what we're here to do, but obviously it is a problem, and for a lot of what's falling in our lap is mixed use housing and commercial. So And there are developers that seem to be just focusing and know how to, they've kind of figured out a formula, right? So whatever that says to you, it fell in my radar. I think it's noteworthy. It's a city that's not very much different than Newburgh. And also, another thing that popped up in my radar is the recent graduates. There was a program. There's a business boot camp here at the city library. So it was a boot camp of basically city entrepreneurs, City of Newburgh entrepreneurs that were helped to tighten up their business savviness, right? And as we know, there are developments that are happening now, and some of them we are involved. And I think that what I would like to see is from maybe our local government or local officials kind of help bridge these connections for entrepreneurs, people that want to be entrepreneurs, to these spaces that are being created by a developer. So I don't have anything other than these things that popped up in my radar, and that I think I just wanted to share with the board. Yeah. So then I guess we can move on to item number 6, council's report.
Sure. Good evening, and it's always good to be with you. I'm sorry I wasn't here last month, but my son graduated from law school, and he's now studying for the bar exam and in, I guess, his own turmoil in doing that. He calls me once in a while and laments, and, too bad. He's got 5 weeks left, so it'll be over soon. Just a couple of updates, and then I did want to just review the commercial retail and the findings, because that's come up on during a couple of meetings. So some updates. The Foundry closed, as you guys know, back at the end of last year. I believe they're starting activity. One thing that they did not do is utilize the mortgage recording exemption yet, which is not unusual for projects of that size. It usually comes in after the fact. I did speak to their counsel last week. They expect to be closing on a mortgage loan sometime next month. So what that requires from the agency is I'll need a signature on an affidavit at some point next month, once we understand who the lender is, once we review the lending documents and include the IDA provisions, because the IDA is in the chain of title there. And then once we sign off on that, I'll prepare the affidavit and send that to get signed. Then that'll be recorded with the mortgage and allow them not to pay the mortgage recording tax. So that'll happen sometime this summer, hopefully in July. 104 Washington, which was also approved last year, as they've been putting together their approvals and their other financing, their counsel did call and say that they're really close to closing in on that as well. They do have, I believe they do have their building permit in hand, so they're ready to go. They're looking to close all of that sometime in the next 4 to 6 weeks. So that I will probably need some signatures from the chair or the executive director over the next probably 4 to 6 weeks. So I'll keep you posted on that. Scobie Drive, there's been some movement on Scobie Drive with baby steps. I did send a letter to the city attorney advising them that that little triangle parcel, I did bring an extra map. I don't know if you guys remember, but back in, I always have to look at this. So back in 2014, in red here is the IDA parcel at 5 Scobie Drive with the access on Scobie. This triangle piece, or essentially triangle piece, was added by the then developer in the brownfield cleanup plan with DEC, simply because they had, under their plan, they needed this triangle piece for their density that are required under the building code. It was never deeded to the IDA. The IDA has no power to transfer this triangle piece. It's still in the name of the city of Newburgh. but it's included currently in the brownfield cleanup agreement. And so the developer asked us to advise DEC and the city that we were removing it from the next iteration of the brownfield cleanup agreement. I met with Jeremy in the city attorney's office back in April before our April meeting. He had no problem with this. So I did send them a letter acknowledging the fact that this, when the new brownfield cleanup agreement is signed, that this triangle piece will not be covered by it. Okay, and there's nothing the IDA can do with it. You never had owned any fee title to this little triangle piece. Okay, so that has been done, and the developer has been asking us to do that over the last couple of weeks. We also sent out a revised contract because, if you recall, those board members that were on, the contract was signed in July of 2020 with a schedule that expected closing to occur in June of 2022. Obviously, that has not occurred, primarily because of the review of the brownfield cleanup agreement, delays of DEC being able to look at the test wells that are already on the site to determine what exactly is in the ground as they update their records. It's been 9 years before they actually looked at those wells. So that has all been done now over the wintertime, and the brownfield cleanup agreement is ready to be opened up and assigned over to the new developer. So we came up with a new schedule and a proposed amended contract where we cleaned up some of the environmental information that we've learned over the last 2 years, extended the milestone dates out to June of 2024, which is the same 2-year period, because we're essentially where we were 2 years ago. So we've just kicked everything out over to 2024. I'm waiting for the council's comments on this amendment. I did review the resolution from 2020 last week, and it covers the amendment process. So this is something else that potentially, hopefully, can get signed over the next couple of weeks and formally amend the contract from July of 2020. Any questions with any of that?
Do that before we go on recess?
No, because the resolution is broad enough to cover any future amendment, as long as it's consistent with the original contract, and it is. I mean, the dates were extended, but there's really nothing new added to it. Okay. And then I did want to just chat for a moment, because I wasn't here last month when you got especially the new members got my new book, my textbook of information. So I apologize for that, but I did want to just cover, because I know the commercial findings, retail findings has come up a couple of times. So if you looked at that book on page 2, there's 11 categories of projects that the IDA can do, and most of them are all commercial, right? There's manufacturing, industrial, warehousing, research, commercial, industrial pollution control, recreation, horse racing. I never understood why horse racing is there, but someone thought that was a good idea. Railroad, which you would never do, and a facility implementing a state-designated urban cultural park management plan or a state-certified continuing care retirement facility. Those are the magic 11 units. So obviously there's no residential in that list, and yet, as you noted earlier, you have approved a mix of residential and commercial buildings. So how do you get there? So how you get there is have a commercial finding in a resolution, and that you've done that in the Foundry case, and you've done that in 104 Washington. More so on the Foundry is exclusively a residential property. There's 59 residential units. 104 Washington has half a dozen units from memory, and a small commercial space on the first floor. So there is a commercial component. What you have done is made commercial findings in that this development, by having access to 59 new families, and presumably a family unit is at least 3 people in most cases, so you'll have more than almost 180 people coming into that area, and they will need places to do what people do. They need gas for their cars, although gas stations are kind going away, but they'll need restaurants, they'll need banks, they'll need places to shop, they'll need perhaps a restaurant, they'll need a bar, they'll need convenience stores, they'll need pharmacies, they'll need everything that we all need in our everyday lives. And so the rationale is that if you allow this residential entity, this development to occur, that will bring in the commercial development. And you included a lot of those requirements in your approval plan, but in all of your commercial resolutions that you've done to date, your commercial finding resolutions, you've identified how you believe, how the agency believes that this development will expand and bring commercial businesses into the area. You're all about jobs. The Foundry has a couple of unique areas that should attract that commercial development. There are commercial buildings, abandoned commercial buildings that are looking for adaptive reuse immediately in the vicinity. There's the Washington's headquarters that should bring in tourism and people to be able to work there and utilize that space. And there's just, again, if you bring in 180 people, they're going to need to be able to shop and do things that we all do. Yes?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but part of the impetus behind that project was not just justifying that residential exponentially will bring in commercial dollars, but that was a very unique and exceptional piece in terms of the development of Newburgh and that particular neighborhood, that our approval of residential units is definitely an exception to very specific, exceptional components to Newburgh, besides just the fact that, because any residential, we could argue, needs additional services, commercial services, and that kind of negates the commercial.
So in that case, I think you're right. There were a couple of unique factors. It was a part of a larger project that had been sitting vacant and deteriorating and a real blight on the community for 20 years, and nothing really has happened with the property. The IDA was originally designated by the city by deed to do something with these 59 units, and arguably you had the right of reversion that was still in existence, that nothing was occurring, and it had been in bankruptcy and litigation, and the only one that really gained anything were the lawyers involved, not me, but the other lawyers involved for the developer and for the various parties that were involved. So you're absolutely right. It was extremely unique, and you have unique requirements in the documents and certain milestones that they have to meet. They have to maintain it as a commercial rental building for at least 8 years. So it's not just we finish it in 2 years and we start leasing and renting out condominium units. No, it's a commercial building. And if they start selling units during that 8-year period, the entire pilot is gone and the entire development switches over, and all of your benefits can be recaptured. So you're absolutely right. It was extremely unique. I think the provisions that the agency included in the approval that are in the documents are also extremely unique. They're very consistent with the mindset of this is going to be a commercial building for a long period of time, and then eventually we'll switch over to a fully residential build property. And one of the unique features for the new members that we've determined was that the condominium plan is really abandoned at this point because it's been too long. Nothing has happened. And arguably there is no condominium per se right now. There is a condominium filing on the property. It would be questionable if you could do anything else besides rent it out at this point. But the developer has to actually take a step to resurrect the condominium. They have to refile in the Office of the Attorney General. and have the Attorney General approve their new amendment to the old plan that's almost 25 years old. So there's a lot of steps involved, which all led to the finding that this is really commercial, and it's in a commercial area, and it'll lead to commercial development, and this is an appropriate project. And other IDAs have done the same thing.
So, Bob, is that what you mean when you say it has to have those, it has to meet commercial requirements for the next
So-
8 years? Is that the same as what you mentioned earlier in terms
Yes.
of? Okay.
So in that particular case, and I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but when they're ready to be, when certificates of occupancy are ready and they can be rented, they have to be rented for 8 years. Okay. There is also the requirement that the agency insisted that their rental values have to be consistent with the marketplace. All right, they can't start charging a higher rent than what is otherwise permitted in the city of Newburgh.
Yeah,
okay,
we
for
did.
the area.
We put a maximum year-over-year increase on the rent.
Okay, so that they couldn't, for example, charge exorbitant rents there, okay, and down the street would be significantly less. They have to be consistent. If they exceed that percentage, the IDA, the agency, can then revoke all of the benefits and the pilot, okay? If they sell a unit, within the 8 years, everything dissipates. If they sell a unit after the 8 years, then the pilot is reduced by that unit. So 159ths, 259ths, 359ths, and then there is a number. I think it was 30.
Yeah, 25 or 30% where
Yeah, if they sell a more, I'll get back to you. I'll look. I think it's 3/4. If they sell 3/4 of the units, then everything is gone.
and everything 25, the 25% that's left
No longer has a pilot, no longer has any benefit. Okay? So it's a unique property. It's not anything I think that, although IDAs around the state have done commercial findings for what are essentially apartment buildings, City of Albany is doing it for the last 3, 4, 5 years because they want to drive residential ownership or at least uses rather in the city to create that commercial space. And they've had some degrees of success in doing that. A lot of the commercial office buildings in downtown Albany are now converting to residential apartment buildings, which is a nice sign. And one of the criticisms has been, where do these people shop? Where do they do when they're here if they don't have a car? And so now you are seeing in Albany the development of the grocery stores and the CVS's and the Walgreens that had closed are now thinking of reopening, and because there's more people downtown. So look at Albany as kind of an incubator of how this can work, because that's exactly the model that they're utilizing. Okay. That's all again, as we go forward, if anyone has questions on that, I know it's been raised a few times. I just thought we should, talk about it, especially for the new members, and qualify that. The only other speech that I would have made for the new members with the book was simply to, you are members now of a public body. With that comes certain responsibilities, which there's a certain fiduciary obligation to keep material confidential and to be careful what you're saying outside of to the public, because the public views you as a board member and a fiduciary, and your first obligation is to the agency and not necessarily to another public body. But that being said, you were appointed by the city council. Obviously, you have to be nice to the city council because they're your appointing authority. And I think this agency has always acted consistently with the interests of the city of Newburgh. So if you have any questions along the way, as I said, from day one, feel free to give me a call. Okay? Thank you, Molly.
Thank you. Okay, so Executive Director's report.
So pretty much everything we talk about here touches the work that I do. I don't have any specific updates per se. However, just to update you on the sidewalks for the Armory, we did meet with a contractor there, with Corporation Counsel, also with the code officer, to discuss how we can move forward for that space. So we do have a court appearance. I think that's been adjourned for July. My hope is that for that time we have significant updates to give for that time. I'm also hoping that within the next month we would have an update from our council that deals specifically with that project. She didn't have anything for this board meeting, otherwise I would have requested that she be present. Also, as Marlon mentioned, we were both present for the Hudson Valley Vision workshop, and Newburgh was pretty well presented there for Orange County, which was really nice. And yeah, all of the projects, as Bob mentioned, are plugging along slowly but surely. And hopefully by the end of the summer, maybe there'll be like a nice flush of news to give you. But we're not meeting from now until September, but there might be a reason that we would need to meet for a quick decision making, which I would then keep you updated on at that time.
And if I could just add, I'm sorry, from my report, I forgot the projects right down the street here. Those documents for closing are ready to go and have been provided. The applicant there had a delay with Orange County until the middle of August. I asked his counsel to keep me posted and have a touch date on July 15th or thereabouts, just to update where are we, where is he, where are they doing. As far as I know, it's still a go, but they did have an issue with Orange County that they did work out and got an extension. So I think the date is now August 19th, which is a Friday. And hopefully by that point we are done. But I'll keep you posted through Share until we meet the next time in September, I guess, right? Sorry about that.
Nope, thank you, and thank you, Cher. And now we can move on to new business. We have two resolutions to look at and hopefully pass. So the first one we're going to look at is Resolution 2022-06-2001, which is an RFP for a labor monitoring company. And I think we're going to need a roll call for this.
So let me just add that we had a subcommittee of Chrissy Amato and Gregory Nato who examined the three proposals that were given along with council, and it was decided that the company that would be chosen to do the work after examining the proposals would be Loki Brill. So that is their, what's the word I want to use? Their suggestion. Huh? Recommendation. That's, yeah. That's their recommendation to all of you, to have that be the company that does the labor monitoring. And as well, you all have been emailed previous times the proposals for your review as well. So everyone.
Explain why, or?
Yeah.
That'd be good, yes, please.
So really,
Bring it close, yeah, there you go.
Catherine from Bob's office was very helpful in this. There are certain companies who are very well versed at this labor monitoring. There are certain requirements and reporting requirements, and so we got three proposals, which was good. Low-key happens to be the most experienced, and I think we were pleased that they actually submitted a proposal because we were maybe unsure if they were going to. But the other two companies seemed very green, if I could say, and it was not comparing they didn't seem as versed on the terms of the reporting, and certainly when it came to billing, low-key, I guess, has done this enough where they are presenting a monthly billing fee to do it, which includes their coming to the site and all of that, whereas all of the other ones wanted to do it, I think it was hourly, and there was no disclosed amount about an estimate of how many hours, or so between them being not really as versed at doing it and their ambiguous billing, low-key definitely sounded like they do a lot of projects in the area. They're very well versed at, sort of the metrics and the reporting, and they seemed sort of like a no-brainer. But you have anything?
Yeah, and then proximity. The other two companies were farther away, and Loki was here locally, so we feel that they'd be more hands-on. The other ones one of them was in New Jersey, too far, so that was a factor as well.
Thank you, Gregory, and thank you, Christina. So I guess we can move on to roll call. Well, we need a motion. Yes, please.
I make a motion to approve resolution, you want me to read it? The Labor Monitoring Company resolution.
I read it in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so then I guess this is when we move into, we need a second, yeah.
Second.
Okay, then I will read the names. Marlon Ramos,
Aye.
Christina Amato,
Yes.
Michael Kelly is absent, Adam Pollock,
Yes.
Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Teresa Priester,
Yes.
and Robin Yanya Pearson.
Yes.
All right. So with that, we move on to the second item in the new business, which is the resolution for a request for a proposal for a new logo. Cher, actually, you want to talk a little bit more about this?
This is your
All
idea.
right. No, I get. So for some time now, I could talk a little bit about it. I've been bringing up that I would love to see us be more proactive, putting ourselves out there in many different ways. There's a lot of opportunities. One of the ways that we can do an immediate change, something quick, is to actually be noticed on the website, on the city website. When you go through the city website, we have the same logo as the city. So, I just think it's kind of like a low-hanging fruit. So, yes, so this is resolution number 2022062002. And so I need a motion.
I move that we approve Resolution 2022-06-20-02.
All right, do we have a second?
A second.
All right, and I guess we'll move on to roll call.
So how did I get away with saying so moved?
No worries, you can say it at the end. Marlon Ramos,
Yes.
Christina Amato,
Yes.
Michael Kelly is absent, Adam Pollock,
Yes.
Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Teresa Priester,
Yes.
and Robin Yanya Pearson.
Yes.
Great, so with that, we'll be able to, as what Marlon wanted to do, talk about rebranding for like social media and all of that. It just helps distinguish you guys from the city.
Okay. Hi. Hello. Thank you for patiently waiting. I guess the floor is open. Make yourself comfortable.
Yeah, you can sit right over there. Just turn on the speakers.
Yeah.
So I'll
There's
just
a push button there.
give a short presentation. I've been speaking to Dan, as some of you know, here in Newburgh. We were able to discuss a project that he has been bringing to other boards within the city, and the possibility of doing something with the IDA. So my hope was that we would have this meeting, that they would be able to make introductions, just to get you familiar with their project, and perhaps take your temperature on if this is something that would work with the IDA. And you're very much in the beginning phases of this. There's no axe in the ground. There's nothing cemented. So this is just very, very preliminary for you all to meet Dan.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. I'm Dan, and this is Eli, Father Shaul. So Cher kind of hit the nail on the head where we're in the beginning stages of starting to go through planning and zoning with this project. We've been working on this for about a year now. It took a long time to kind of get through city engineering to make sure that the project was viable and, we could actually get water and sewer up to this site. It's a very unique site. I think it's a good opportunity to provide more housing and also do something pretty interesting in the city of Newburgh and a specific district here. I know that your guys' forte isn't residential housing, but I think that there's a few components about this that might be interesting to you guys, and we just wanted to introduce ourselves as developers and let you guys know about this project, and like Cher said, see if there's any synergy between this or if we should try to go a different way on this. One of our main concerns here is the cost of the taxes after this project is done, because with with the assessments and with the rates, the way that the city has it right now, it's pretty difficult to build new construction on to scale without getting some kind of incentive. So that's kind of why we're here, and we'd be happy to stop at any point and answer any questions that you have along the way as we go through this.
So I guess I'll start kind of presenting here. You see that there's an index sheet on the front, and this isn't the total package. We just asked the engineer what he thought was the most important, and we just kind of took those pages just so you can get a good general overview. So just to start, you could see the general layout on the first page of the project. What we're doing is 10 buildings, and each building has 6 units. So that's a total of 60 units on the project. There's a piece of road where you see that says City of Newburgh with the circle. That is a water tank for the city. So that piece is actually Ellis Avenue. That's the extension. That's a city-owned street that we're maintaining.
So I don't know if anyone here is familiar with this site, but this is over by Snake Hill, kind of behind where the New Graft cider place is going up. Yeah, so it's kind of on that side of the city that doesn't see as much development, or hasn't in the last few decades.
And on the other side of the water tank, for reference, is Crystal Lake. Next page, again, just a good general overview with some topography. We're doing as much as we can to kind of conserve and maintain as much natural landscape as we can and not disturb, a lot of the plants and trees around the project.
One of the interesting things about this being in the conservation district is the amount of lands that, we can't develop because of where this is in the city. It's also one of the most interesting parts to us because I think there's 3 parcels, and altogether they're about 12 acres in total. What our plan is actually to give the Orange County Land Trust an easement for about 6 of those acres, so for about half of the land, so that half of this land is conserved. And then, possibly the development of hiking trails and things like that, because there's a lot of hiking trails that kind of go up from Snake Hill to Crystal Lake. Some of them have been abandoned. I think Scenic Hudson might have, worked on some of those. But there's a lot of opportunity there to get a lot of nice outdoor recreation out of this site and, make it connect more into the city of Newburgh.
Yeah, and then each page that you see as you're going through is just like more general utility layouts of each building. And then if you flip towards the end, you'll see our conceptual unit layouts. So each apartment will be about 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. And like I said, there will be 60. And you could see our kind of exterior proposal as to what the look that we wanted to go with, a little more natural, still some stone, and you could see a lot of greenery around it as well. And the very last page is a planting plan, which isn't concrete, but it does give you a kind of general idea of what we're going for.
The concept is basically to build housing in the forest and to keep it as forested as possible, which is why we chose the materials for the outsides of the buildings, to kind of complement that.
What's the mix of units now?
It's all 2 bedrooms. Mm-hmm.
So one of the difficult parts of the site is the topography and the fact that it's on a mountain. So there's not a lot of space to build in this particular place, and kind of the way that the buildings themselves are laid out, as well as the parking, areas. They're the flattest pieces of the blend, if you will. And in order to kind of get more variety out of it, changing the footprints and everything would be pretty difficult. You could see kind of like by building 6 and 7, it starts to get very steep, and it kind of does around the other ones too. So it's a tough site to work with. We're going to be trying to plant as little grass as possible. We want to do things like use, like naturally occurring plants in the area that only get to be a few inches tall, so that way that's good for pollinators. We don't have to spend time mowing the lawn. There's not going to be gas being used to mow the lawn. So there's a lot of good things that could come from, using things like that and not necessarily making it grass. We think the grass, a lot of grass would take away from the natural landscape around this project too. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And they're great at absorbing water and runoff as well.
Right now, we had just gone to look through the project with the Travel Advisory Committee, the Conservation Advisory Committee. We're still going back to planning, so we probably have a few more times that we have to go.
Yeah, we've had, I think, one planning board meeting so far.
Yeah, only one. We've
planning.
had like 6 or 7 workshops and then one planning board meeting.
Do we have estimated numbers? Do we have that so far?
Of like how much the overall project would cost? We were roughly at about 15 to 16 million for this project.
Okay, when do you guys plan on officially coming to us with an application, or are you going to give it some more time with the planning board?
Yeah, we want to get our numbers tighter, and again, this was for the purpose of seeing if this is something that would be in your preview. As far as some of the reasons why it might be, one, it's kind of it isn't really developed in that section of the city, and there are commercial businesses that are starting to go in there. The big warehouse on Broadway was done. You have that Graft Cidery going in there. I think there's a lot of there's a lot of space over there in the city, so I think that it could actually attract more thoughtful development over there as well too. The parklands, prospect of it, and being able to use the recreational, the land for recreation, I think could be something that could be interesting to you guys as well. And with 60 units, it will create several full-time jobs, for maintenance staff, leasing staff, administrative staff, and that kind of thing as well too.
So I've done a lot of travel through Europe, and these are sort of the norm now for outside of urban centers. Like Rome, for instance. When you go to Rome, there are these little communities that are starting to be built up. What I always find very interesting is they are not purely residential. In how many residents would be here? How many units? 60?
60.
Yeah, okay. So that this area becomes its own sort of self-contained metropolis, developers will put a coffee bar and a small grocery so that people have access to coffee and food. Is there any opportunity for retail in any part of this?
I think with the space that we had, we were mulling over some ideas of like a clubhouse or like, somewhat of a community center, just with the topography and kind of the amount of natural land that we are dedicating. There wasn't room for it as of yet, but it's not a definite no. It's definitely a possibility that we could look into.
Yeah, we would definitely like to, if we were able to put some kind of small commercial component into it, it would have been nice. But I think it's also complementary too, because someone down there might come down to Two Alice's or Black Vanilla for their coffee. So, they're utilizing those businesses too. So, I think there's great, reasons for and against it. But, just as far as like dealing with the natural land, it'd be very difficult to like kind of add anything else onto it. And to, build any less units, it just simply wouldn't work dollar-wise.
Do you know what any of the other, it looks like a lot of these parcels around it belong to the city of Newburgh. Do you know if there are any plans for any of these parcels that surround it?
Some of the parcels, I think kind of go into the recreational thing, like, there's stuff around Crystal Lake. There's also 2 old cemeteries around there, so there might be some archaeological issues.
I see.
We did get through that with this because, there were no findings after we went to the state and everything, and this is far enough away from the cemeteries to kind of negate that. But I do think there's, kind of things like that going on, with some of the other parcels. So the city, I don't believe, is considered, really doing much with their parcels at this point.
It's an interesting part of the city because it's part of the city, but it's on the outskirts. It's an area that, a lot of us tend to sort of forget about, being such, density hogs down here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I actually thought it was another parcel. I just looked up where it was. It's an interesting part that, is still part of the city, right around the corner from Motorcyclopedia and Heights Lumber and.
Right.
Yeah, you could throw a rock into New Windsor from there.
You're right there on the border. Yeah.
There is a cell phone tower, I know, up the street as well, so I know that that's part of the land.
Yeah. That's an IDA thing. Interesting.
Could you describe to the members what your plan of finance is at this point, understanding that it's probably preliminary?
Yeah, we've spoken to a few lenders, and there's a few different ideas that we could go through, but we were kind of waiting until we got to zoning and planning, because like I said, it took us about a year just to get, to there. So now we're just finally having those like very primary discussions with some of the lenders that we engaged a few months ago to let them know about the project.
And are you allocating any units for affordable housing?
It's something that we've considered, and it's something that, is definitely on the table. We're big advocates of affordable housing in general, and if it fits into this project with the financing package, then we would be happy to look into that.
You guys are looking at lenders, though, traditional bank lenders or different variety. I mean, a big component of that will be sort of your lender too, and what the lender. What sort of? Are there any grants or benefits? I mean, you guys aren't doing like historic or anything like that. Is there anything else besides us that you guys are able to take advantage of?
Not that we know of yet, so if anybody has any ideas, we're all ears. CPC, one of the lenders that we talked to, if we did a percentage of like affordable units, it could be a project that they would be interested in. We've worked with them in the past on other smaller projects before. So, we're keeping our minds open to see what'll work, for the space.
Yeah, the banking environment's gone a little bit haywire
Yeah.
in the last few weeks.
Right.
Which I'm sure you guys know.
Yep.
By the time we get the approvals, maybe the interest rates will be back down.
Maybe it'll turn around. We're all hoping.
Are we the first organization that you've approached?
I'm sorry?
Are we the first organization that you've approached regarding some sort of benefits?
Yep. Yeah, this is our first time.
Okay. Well, I personally don't have any questions. I'm kind of, to be honest with you, I'm going to take it in. I do want to note that our overall focus is jobs. That's the overall focus for us. And there have been, as you were present, there has been very unique situations where we've had to make unique decisions. So just at the face value, it doesn't seem that it would fall exactly what we would do. So, like I said, right now I don't have a whole. Personally, the board is more than free to speak up and give their opinions. But this is just at face value right now.
Sure.
Yeah, and I know it's early, so I'd also say there's a dialogue that should be had, whether it's with us or whatever other route you go through to find some sort of benefit. There's a dialogue to be had. So, yeah, take that as it is. Just my personal feedback here.
When you say jobs, what specifically, like an amount of jobs that it creates, or what kind of jobs that it creates, or?
So, I would say I'm going to defer more to, well, it's got to be how it creates jobs for not only a commercial use, maybe if you are endeavoring in something, right, yourself, but it's also the case if you're creating a space where other people can actually come in and create jobs themselves. So, and if Bob would like to add a little bit more to that, but that's the route.
So traditionally, the IDAs are looking for job creation, okay? Either first on the construction side, and so this is the size project that you'll have more than 100 contractors, I would think, over the course of an 18-month to 24-month construction cycle. You'd have 100 to 120, 130 different contractors on at different times, but over the course of the project. So that's one job creation. After that's, then what is the job creation afterwards? So you mentioned that there would be some full-time jobs on site, okay? And so you need to crystallize that for the agency. What's the number? What would they specifically be doing? How would you go about hiring them? Would you look at the local hiring at the community level? Any training for those jobs required, and what would they pay? Would there be minimum wage jobs? Would they be hired at that? Who would be the employer? Would it be you? Would it be your successor as the manager, or would it be the management company? How would you select a management company? Those are the types of things that I think you need to include, and as you're going forward over the next several months, and how the final plan, what's it going to look like? It's one thing to get your approvals and development, but now, okay, if we start putting a shovel into the ground 6 to 10 months from now, what's it going to look like 18 months when it's done? And so I think that's what the agency is looking for. And you're, I think, at a slight disadvantage because unlike the other projects which are here in an obvious urban setting, and I know where New Windsor is. I spent a lot of time there, and if you're near there, it's less urban and more suburban, more trees, as you mentioned. So it's a little bit harder to then try and document that, hey, this is going to bring commercial development. It sounds like you're the only development in town. So I think that's something that you have to consider and continue to talk to the executive director and try to overcome those hurdles. Not saying it's impossible at all.
It's definitely good feedback from the two of you. At face value, I definitely understand, and as we start to do more work, we'll turn up those numbers and see, if it's something in your preview.
So that something that you could also consider. I know there's a lot of talk about how connecting those trails will increase tourism and all of that. If that's somehow part of the work that you're doing, that what you're creating helps increase tourism or can support the tourism that you would expect to happen at the connection of those trails around Crystal Lake that I know has been mentioned many times, and I think that would also be a better part of the argument. I don't know what that would look like. I'm just saying, as far as what the IDA's mission is, that is part of it. And that's something that I'm happy to, you can bounce off of me if we continue to have a relationship together and continue the talks.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that we've already proposed to the city is building a parking lot so that people can access some of those things. So there's definitely a few more details too that we could go into so that people could park and hike and use those trails or go to Crystal Lake, especially being down here where you really don't get you're not in like New York City, but you don't get like, the same thing if you live on Lander Street where, you're in the woods and, you could actually take time to reflect on yourself and your surroundings. So just, being able to like have a space where people could go do that and, making it more friendly, because right now it's a little scary over there. So, I think like just making it more accessible in general would be helpful.
I have a question.
Sure.
It might be a little too early for this. The parking spot.
I'm sorry?
The parking lot that you mentioned right now, do you have any idea how big it would be? Would it be big enough to maybe create a place where the local food trucks can go park on the weekends or something?
It's not a bad idea, but we don't know the exact figure of it yet. We do have like a space you could see off the Ellis Ave extension. It's like up in the corner there, so there's potential for that.
Actually,
it could be
Beacon did
something.
something similar. I don't know if it was at the base of one of their main hiking trails, but they had sort of a park area, parking lot, but it was at the base of, you could take off and go hike from there. And they had once in a while, like 4 or 5 of the food trucks would come and, they did sort of like a little valet parking, right, to get down the hill.
We'll take you up to the top.
Take you up.
But this is the type of dialogue that,
Yeah.
I will say, so, from our perspective, our main charge, as Marlon and Bob said, is the creation of jobs, for understandable reasons in cities like this is, why IDAs, have these benefits to give these benefits away to create jobs. We're also, one of our main charges is for the benefit of the city. So things that improve the city, which is sort of commercially how we were able to get to some of these other projects, which maybe did not have as big of a commercial component, but were a very clear impact on their particular area of the neighborhood, of a neighborhood within the city, or the city in general. As you guys know all too well, we have a lot of parcels that are either currently totally off the tax rolls and aren't really benefiting the tax rolls at all, which speaking in terms of taxes is not necessarily a direct charge of the IDA, but sort of indirectly in creating benefit for the city, because the better, sort of the richer the ratables are to the city, the more benefits that they can give out to the community. There are a lot of parcels that have either are not paying, are delinquent, have a very low utilization, and throughout the city is constantly, okay, ideally we would love the highest and best use out of those parcels to provide the best tax ratables to the city, but not every parcel is necessarily suited for the highest and best use, and we're presented with all the time, okay, this is a parcel that is not making any money, has been off the tax rolls for however many generations, and is providing a huge community benefit, is providing positive taxes, is providing a component of jobs, is providing sort of this menu of, under the umbrella of benefit for the city of Newburgh. So our number one charge is jobs, certainly, and if you came to us and half of these buildings were commercial buildings, or that's like even better for us. But I think it's something in certain areas of the city, dependent on what's going on. We are able to give out benefits to help the developer or the business get the leg up, and then hopefully fly on their own and become independent and successful members of the community for a long, sustainable period, to the tax base, to all of those wonderful things. So, we try not to provide sort of a crutch for long term, but to say, okay, this is a great project in the city. We can demonstrate, or the developer can demonstrate, has really positive impacts on the rest of the city, like access to public areas that hiking that they wouldn't might be considerable. But yeah, like Gregory said, certainly any little commercial components or live workspaces or things that can be branded that way are very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Just one last question. Do you know, or you probably know, but just to confirm, the type of benefits that you can get through the IDA?
When I spoke to the executive director, she let me know a little bit, but this is, it's all pretty new to me in general.
Right.
Just kind of like what the IDA offers, but.
Right.
That'd be
Oh,
good.
wait, just kind of, I just wanted to get an idea, but I'm sure she went through it. I'm confident in what Cher is going to assist you through. But, so we're not at the point where you're guesstimating or trying to put into your numbers what you would be requesting from us yet. You're not there yet, right?
No, definitely
Okay.
not. Yeah, this is like a, hey, how are you guys doing?
Got it.
Do you want to go out with us?
All right. You want to have another coffee?
Yeah. Right. Of course.
No, we're commercial. We love commercial. IDA is. If you're producing 20 to 30 jobs, we'd love to see those applications. Yeah, those are great applications because that's what, right? An IDA charges.
This is absolutely correct. So in the absence, you did mention something, so I just want to make sure. In the absence of a restriction from the city in selling that property to you, the agency would love that application.
Yeah.
But I can also see that if the city is selling property to you as a developer, there may be some strings attached. And one of them may be that you can't apply to the agency for a pilot, okay? You could, so some cities have, some municipalities have said that to their agencies, but they have not included in, typically they have not included in that restriction the sales tax exemption, which is not insignificant. I mean, it's during construction, it's all of those sales tax benefits, and then any mortgage recording tax as well, which in New York State is also could be significant depending on the size. But the pilot, it depends on what strings come with the sale from the city. If the city says we can't, the agency can't do a pilot, then the agency can't do a pilot. Okay.
Just also, and since I'm a tax fanatic, in terms of development and being a developer and producing ratables, the city creates its budget off of the total assessed value. And so if the total assessed value can grow, not because they reassess people at larger amounts, but because we can create new properties or take properties that were off the tax roll and put them back on, or essentially create new tax ratables, that's great. That grows this pie, and then they multiply it by their multiplier, and then they get a larger pie to use for the things that the city uses. In terms of those ratables, historically and in most towns and cities, residential and putting something on the residential rolls where there was no taxes is better than not. But in terms of impact or fiscal impact, how many police officers, fire department, DPW are used per use? Residential doesn't come out that much positive, net positive. So the amount of taxes that a residential unit pays versus how much they use in uses in DPW, city, police officers, things like that, it's about equivalent, but the objective is for it to be at least a little bit positive. Where the city has the biggest bang for its buck, and why I'm assuming IDAs were created, is commercial businesses provide generally a much larger net positive tax rateable. So they pay for their uses, and then on top of that, their taxes are paying sort of a larger profit amount to the city to then be able to use for community benefits. So,
Well, one of the good things about this, I was going to say about the shoveling and the garbage. So one of the good things is the city doesn't want us to use the DPW for garbage removal and for like shoveling and plowing and things like that too.
which is a good benefit of an HOA or a condominium association or something like that. That you're not using those city uses for those.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be taxed the same, but we'll be getting slightly less from them. And then too, with all the, this being a new building as opposed to like retrofitting, with all the fire sprinkler stuff that we have to put in, it'll probably be one of the safest, multifamily buildings around here. So hopefully the fire department would have to come less.
To come less, which we like. Yes, which we like. And those are all benefits. So, so you know what we're looking for. So.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you for your
Thank you for the
time.
presentation. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
And to everybody,
And yes, go out and buy more commercial projects where you have jobs. No. As long as there are no restrictions on the parcel that you're buying from the city, we want to create as many jobs in the city as possible. Yeah. Sure. The house at the end of our street is looking beautiful, by the way. Thank you. From a historic preservation perspective, we're all very, very happy. 420 Grand, which was the big
Right.
old house that burned, partially
oh
burned.
yeah, that's looking beautiful.
You guys have done an amazing job
That's
with it. Yep.
sure. Oh, wow. Yeah, stunning. Yeah.
It's not easy. We're all duking it out here. But we appreciate it. It looks beautiful. You guys can take your copies because you might need them for other. Leave. What do you want? One copy?
Can we
I don't
keep-
think each of us.
We'll keep one copy if that's okay with you.
But yeah, we know they're super
Yeah,
expensive. Yeah. Yeah, for 20 grand. We're really happy. There's a beautiful roof, beautiful shingles. It's a great color green trim. It looks very nice. Nice color. Yep. You still have some of your historic glass, which I really like. Yeah. I know.
Wow.
Takes.
Every siding like this has cost $3.
I know.
You see the color, it's all natural.
Yeah. If you need a recommendation for a stained glass person, he redid all of mine. He did a great job.
Working on the stand,
Okay.
probably to 2-3 people.
Okay.
We have it also inside the house, on the side.
Yeah.
Right now, we just finished the firing, the
Sprinkling. Yeah. Yeah. I know it's a process.
the outside, we finished.
It looks beautiful. We appreciate it. We all appreciate it. It's a great house. Yeah. That one. Yeah. Very happy. Yes, needs
Have a good
to be
one.
loved. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. So I guess we can move on to item number 9, which is old business. Nothing on the table. Going once, going twice. I think we're good on that. So I guess I need a motion for adjournment.
Meeting has ended. Go in peace.
I move we adjourn.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. So we're
Thank you.
done for today.
Everybody enjoy your summer. Your summer plan.